Hello, friends, and thank you for joining Miss Toya's podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing the wonderful world of special education. Special education is a purposeful intervention designed to overcome or eliminate the obstacles that keep children with disabilities from learning. The law requires public schools to provide special education services for qualified students ages 3 to 21. These students must meet evaluated criteria. It's all about individualization and giving kids the resources they need to make progress in school. I decided to interview a resource specialist who has been a professional in the special needs field for 33 years. She gave us personal insight on special education. Mrs. Nicole Severance is a specialist in elementary school special education, grades kindergarten through 5th grade. For 23 years, she ran a special ed RSP program for the Long Beach Unified School District. I have had the honor of working under her for 14 years as her special ed instructional aide. However, she recently retired due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Anyhow, I was thrilled because I was able to interview my mentor for this podcast. Mrs. Severance told us that what drew her to become an RSP teacher was the fact that she always enjoyed working with children and had a heart and soft spot for students who struggled. She explained to me that she was a mild to moderate level special ed RSP teacher and that there were 3 levels, mild, moderate, and severe. An example she gave me of a child who would be considered mildly disabled was a student who had problems retaining what they learned, such as basic reading, math, or comprehension skills. A moderate example could be a student who lacked motor skills or required a speech therapist. And a severe disability could be a child who needs constant assistance with toileting or who doesn't have the ability to communicate. Mrs. Severance thought smaller classes were best for all students. She believes that the more attention that students get from their teacher in small group settings, the greater their progress will be. I couldn't help myself but to ask if she thought there was a stigma on the word RSP. Her response was that she's had some of her students ask her if RSP meant really stupid people, and they told her that their classmates were making fun of or teasing them about it. She simply told her students that it stood for Resource Specialist Program, which just means that students get to learn in smaller groups. But she also remembers other students who didn't have RSP approaching her on the playground, asking if they could come to her class because they heard it was so fun. While interviewing Mrs. Severance on the topic of special ed levels, I noticed many connections that related to TPE number 1. It only made sense since TPE number 1 focuses on engaging and supporting all students in learning. Mrs. Severance made sure she did that. With her, every student gets a fair chance. In TPE 1.1, it states that teachers should be able to apply knowledge of students, including their prior experiences, interests, and social emotional learning needs. Teachers should take into consideration that these children have feelings. They may not show that they are embarrassed to be in special education or feel out of place with the rest of the students that only have general classes, but teachers have to be prepared to address these emotional situations if need be. It's what we signed up for. All right, we're back at it, ready to tackle the topic of assessments and students' individual education plans. These 2 fundamental tools are major tasks in guiding a special education student's future toward progress and success. Mrs. Severance gave us a broad idea on how a student might be placed into a special ed program. She recalled that students are generally referred for special services by their general education teacher. The teacher would call for a student study team meeting. At this meeting, the teacher presents their concerns regarding the student and lists their interventions that have already been tried in the class. The school team usually consists of a counselor, principal, parents, and the school psychologist. Within a follow-up meeting, the student psychologist conducts an assessment to determine if the student qualifies for special education services. If the child qualifies under one of the qualifying material, an individual education plan, aka IEP, will be created for the student. Mrs. Severus explained that an IEP was a document that lists the qualified students' present levels of performance in all academic and social areas. Goals are created to address any areas of deficit. The document outlines how many minutes of services the student will receive each week and which specialist will deliver the services. Goals could be anything from adding single digits to sums of 20, decoding words involving vowel sounds, or staying on task in class with minimal teacher prompts. As you can see, the goals could reach a broad spectrum depending on the child's needs. Mrs. Severance says that parents' attendance at these IEP meetings is critical. It is very important that the parents are informed and understand all aspects of the special education process. Their input is needed in the development of goals to ensure that their child's needs will be addressed. It is the responsibility of the IEP team to decide how the student with a disability will participate and then to document that decision in the child's IEP. This process is so supreme that there is a whole TPE created for assessing student learning. That TPE is number 5. In TPE 5.2, it states that effective teachers will collect and analyze assessment data from multiple measures and sources. Without careful assessment, we, the teachers, study team, and parents wouldn't know which way to go. Assessments in IEPs are guides for student achievement. Module 3 has some great highlights connected to assessments in IEPs as well. In Module 3, Chapter 5, it also stated what Mrs. Severance said about the child being put in the most least restrictive setting after being assessed. It is important to know what level of special ed the child will be best suited for. It is remarkable when you consider that the teacher's journey is an adventure, an experience worth working for while being able to know that you make a difference in a child and their parent's life. But not every good thing comes without some level of difficulty or even times where you felt you just might not make it. Mrs. Severus explained to me that teaching is a demanding and challenging job. It's not a job that you just leave at the office. She said that she goes home constantly thinking about how she can get certain kids to get their reading scores up or how she can get them to keep on track with their behavior. There had been times where she felt she couldn't do it anymore, but when she goes back to work the next day and sees her students' earnest little faces, she is energized to keep at the job. During the interview, Mrs. Severance said the COVID-19 pandemic affected her as a teacher, but the pandemic also helped her to learn how to teach online, in which she had no experience in. She was lucky that her district provided excellent training workshops and had a supportive group of teachers that would share ideas. It was difficult for Mrs. Severance to keep kids engaged and make sure that they logged on each day. Online teaching requires a lot of phone calls to parents. The last question I have for Mrs. Severance was, did she have any advice for future special ed teachers out there? She found that the qualities that have helped her most in her career as a special ed teacher was being flexible. Things change often and fast. So if I had to put what Ms. Severance said into perspective, I say, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. She approaches each day with enthusiasm and a genuine concern for her students and well-being and academic progress. She's always been willing to learn and study new research on better ways for her classroom. She finishes by saying that you will work very hard and face many challenges, but it's worth it. I was very fortunate to interview my previous boss. Interviewing her helped me to reflect on just the type of special ed teacher I want to be and how the child's needs should always be put first. A TPE that I think helps me reflect is TPE number 6, Developing as a Professional Educator. In 6.1, that TPE states that effective teachers reflect on their own teaching practice and level of subject matter. I think Mrs. Severance did just that. She also was really great at engaging in communication and inquiry with colleagues, which is stated in TPE 6.3. All of these things go hand in hand on what makes a great teacher that makes great students. As you can see, programs play a huge part for students with disabilities everywhere. With the help of special educators, we provide students with specialized instruction designed to meet their unique learning needs. The goal is to give these students the opportunity to develop their fullest potential. Without special ed, certain students would academically suffer, and this could have a negative impact on the outcome of their livelihood. But thanks to professionals like Mrs. Severance, who care and strive for the best in her students, special education will help help pave the way, offering the kids a guided path towards success. I'd like to thank my listeners today for attending this important informational podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I thank you all for following my journey to become a special ed teacher. Peace, love, and goodbye.